Hi folks, this is just a short video to talk about eLaw and particularly to talk about the assessment because one of the purposes of our first workshop is to talk about assessment and to put it all into context. And it is usually the question, not surprisingly, that most students want to answer is, what's the assessment about? What are we going to do? Okay, just a couple of things, a couple of short diversions to give you some of the context for this discussion. First of all, we've been looking very seriously at law graduate destinations, and particularly some work that's suggesting that more graduates will be working outside of the traditional legal fields than ever before. And one of those fields that's a growth area that we don't really support that much in a conventional university law program is an information manager. Someone who works with information, who creates resources, who translates information into a form that others can use. It's a very, very essential part of law, but it's really not much, not really something that there's a lot of attention focused on. So this is driving one of the core design principles in this course, which is to think about what is it that you will possibly be doing in your careers in terms of creating information resources, looking at a target audience, designing around that. I mean, no one is going to ask you to write an assignment out there in the real world. What they're going to do is they're going to look for specific resources. And in the future, this is going to be also be a project that's going to more and more involve networks of people and collaboration. There's very few situations where one person will write one thing. I mean, books work that way, but most people don't write books. Most people write resources. They collaborate with others. And collaboration is also something that goes forward and back in time. You take resources that are existing, you write them knowing that someone is going to update them and move on from there. So we're going to focus on that as a career issue. We've got a lot of freedom to do that because A, it's an elective, and B, eLaw is, as the first video mentioned, such an enormous and broad area of law that that we don't have a core curriculum to cover. It's not like torts, where these are the nominate torts and these we have to go through step by step and make sure we cover it. eLaw, we can literally talk about anything that involves digitization or virtualization of the law, which seems to be pretty much every legal topic these days. So diversion one is that we're really going to focus on that role of information design and being a practitioner whose role it is to create information resources and share them. Diversion number two, I guess, is that eLaw is an area that there's no current textbook in. You have a whole lot of notes that Stephen generously passed on to us. He was largely responsible for creating these. And they're going to be the foundation of the sorts of things we're going to be looking at. But there isn't really anything out there that's a good, solid foundation. So why don't we, as part of what we're doing in this course, look at creating something like that? Now, we're not going to be able to write an entire eLaw textbook between, I mean, there's only about 9 of us so far, so it's against, hopefully there'll be a few more. It'll be a bit more interesting if there's a few more people. But we're not going to be in a position where in the next 12 weeks we're going to be able to write a book. What we can do is we can isolate areas that we want to look at and focus on and develop those and create the start of something, I guess. And we'll be using a wiki as a model. And the good thing about a wiki is you can set things up and you can hand it over to others to work on later on. So getting back to the assessment in this course, the assessment is going to really focus around 100% around the creation of that wiki. So we're going to have weekly, there's two pieces to it, as you'll no doubt see from the outline. One is a weekly piece, which is a weekly workshop that you will lead. A different person will lead each week. Now that may not necessarily be part of the synchronous Zoom session. Some people may prefer to create some resources, do them online, create a video like this one, create discussion threads that the people can contribute to. That's valid as well because that's the world we're working in increasingly. But we'll also have the weekly workshops as a support and as a backup. and it is easier to talk to people synchronously in that way. We'll do a bit of both. So one of the things you'll be doing, okay, is deciding in the next few weeks on the topic that you want to focus on, the area you want to really focus on. That can be a collaborative process, because we might find that if people have similar interests, we can start joining them up, and we can start joining up resources so that things are starting to work together. And it's not going to be a group assignment by any means, but if two people are working on the area of, say, intellectual property, and someone's looking at piracy and someone's looking at this particular case, and someone else is looking at another case from another jurisdiction, well, if they work together and they develop compatible resources, then that's going to be really good. So, okay, two parts to the assessment. One part is effectively a pitch. It's effectively going to the group and saying, this is what I'm interested in writing about for my final piece. Here are my ideas. Here is a draft, if you like, of the sorts of things I want to include, and holding it open for discussion, and this is my response to the discussion. So the first piece is really the pitch of the final piece. You will be required to probably discuss things outside of what your final project's going to be, but that's good, because part of the process is about putting the boundaries down. The second piece is, again, which is due at the end of semester, is about the final product, and it's about creating that final product and reflecting on what you've learned as a part of that process. So it's I think, nice and simple. There's two pieces. It's really a research subject, and because it's an elective and the numbers are small enough, we can really capitalise on that format, and we can actually do something that's meaningful. Now, it will require you to be on the ball and keeping up with what other people are doing and keeping up with discussions and so on, but I mean, not intensively so. But certainly if you don't engage with the process and you stay out of it and try and hand something in at the end, it's likely to be fairly weak, because you really need to be alert to sort of the themes and discussions that are emerging. So we'll talk about this more. I realise I've gone on for 7 minutes now. I'll talk about this more in the first workshop, and we are open for some negotiation on what happens within those guidelines, which I wrote in a deliberately very broad way. But the basic idea is we'll be talking about things from week to week. You'll have an opportunity somewhere in there, and we'll need you to commit to that fairly soon, actually, but you'll have an opportunity somewhere in there to present your idea to the rest of the group and to get feedback from them on that. And then you'll be able to go away, fine-tune, develop a set of resources, which will be some information, some links, some connections, and so on, and write a reflection on that, and there you go. So have a think about it. Have a quick look at the course outline. Have a look at see if there's some areas that you immediately spring to mind as something you are really interested in doing, and we can start that negotiation. Now, when this course runs in the future, people will have to talk about what you've already done. So if you've already written the definitive resource on a particular case, they're not going to be able to do that. But I don't think we're going to run out of law anytime soon. We're making law faster than we can write about it. But the idea of this is that you're going to be writing something that is going to have some perpetuity, and you'll be acknowledged for it. Your name will be on it. We'll probably create it as a wiki, so your authorial rights will be there, and in fact you'll be able to continue to engage with it and interact with it if you like. Later on, if you want to update and change things, that's all going to be fine. So we're trying to move outside of the basic little boxes in terms of learning. Almost all of you are a long way through your program, and hopefully almost all of you are up for a challenge. And it's going to be, we've got the resources there, we've got the foundations there. Hopefully you won't feel lost along the way, but hopefully it'll be something that you'll feel is a good, interesting challenge for you. Okay, let's talk about this more in class.